again, and as I say in this episode, and I mentioned in an earlier episode, we want to tell you about The Mask Comes Off, and that deals with the man who played the Lone Ranger and on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Clayton Moore, who played the Lone Ranger. It says Clayton Moore, the Lone Ranger. So he is pretty much the definitive Lone Ranger. And there was a lawsuit that got involved. Some legal questions came up when a new movie came up with another actor. I think it was Clinton Spilsbury playing the Lone Ranger. I think it was 1981, and then, but Clayton Moore, he was involved there, and they didn't want him to wear the mask anymore, so he started wearing sunglasses, and he'd wear those out in public, and I think that caused a little upset also. It all finally got settled, and everybody was reconciled, but and I mentioned Clayton Moore because he's the one that in issue number 13 of the Dell Comics, they had 145 issues of the Lone Ranger in Dell, and he was in issue, or on the cover of at least, issue number 112, and then from 112 to 145, he was also featured in there, and I believe each time he was featured in that. And I have some of the other issues. Here's an issue where he was featured. There he is on silver, and then here it shows him fighting someone on the front cover here. And of course on these now, there are no portraits of the American Indian. That ended with number 35 in the Dell issues. And here's a good close-up of Clayton Moore playing the Lone Ranger there, holding his Peacemaker gun. And then here's another one. This happens to be a double cover comic of the Lone Ranger. Pretty good shape, but it shows him there on the front cover. Here he is. I happened to get an autograph here of him. I found that on eBay of Clayton Moore in silver. Shows his autograph there, and has a COA, or a Certificate of Authenticity, on the back. But I wanted to also mention that John Hart played the Lone Ranger for a few episodes when there was another little dispute with Clayton Moore and the people in ownership of the Lone Ranger name. But here's John Hart. If you remember, I did a little episode talking about Hawkeye and Chingascook, the last of the Mohicans. John Hart played Hawkeye in that. And he was also given a cameo role in The Legend of the Lone Ranger, put out in 1981. But Clayton Moore wasn't given a cameo role. And I believe Dynamite Comic Group, they put out in one of their issues, and I believe this was a tribute to Clayton Moore here. It looks a lot like Clayton Moore. Now that's just my opinion, because it's kind of a typical view of Clayton Moore on silver there. I'm not altogether sure that was a tribute to him, but it sure looks like it. And then I told you that we'd show the Lone Ranger unmasked. Here's Clayton Moore, and I'll read to you who the man on the horse behind the Lone Ranger is. It says that the photo was taken by a production coordinator, and it said it was made on location in 1954. It said the man on silver, the man on silver is the Wrangler, who looked after Silver when he was not with Clayton Moore, and this is a fairly rare picture. But that's a little bit about Clayton Moore. But I have a little personal story I wanted to tell you. When I was younger, 1985, I was set up at a flea market over in Silver, North Carolina, and somebody came by when I was selling items at a table there, and they said, you know, the Lone Ranger's going to be in Cherokee? And this was on July the 4th, 1985. And I said, sure enough, sure enough. And so I threw everything in the truck and I took off to Cherokee, and lo and behold, I did get an autograph from Clayton Moore. This is a reprint of it, but I've got the actual autograph of Clayton Moore. He was in a trailer there behind the theater there in Cherokee. And I stepped up on a concrete block, knocked on the door, and he opened the door. He was there in his full outfit. And I stuck out my hand to shake hands, and he said, now be careful of my hand. I injured it recently. So I shook his hand real gently, but he gave me his autograph. And it says, to Gene, that's my first name, good friend, Clayton Moore, the Lone Ranger, 7485, and he put God bless down at the bottom of it. So that's a little bit about the Lone Ranger Unmasked. And I hope you enjoyed the information I gave you, and I hope you'll give me a like and maybe subscribe to our channel. God bless you.